Hello everyone. Today I want to dive into something that's been on my mind lately, South of Midnight. A game which personally for me has been shaping up to be a truly unique and visually stunning, especially after watching the documentary that released late last year around November. It's got that Southern Gothic vibe and a distinctive art style and a story that feels fresh. But unsurprisingly, the game has been facing some backlash. Backlash that honestly feels all too familiar these days. Ever since its first announcement, South of Midnight has been labeled as quote unquote woke with the release of it. Since the release of its documentary, things have escalated even more, with people now calling it DEI propaganda, throwing around woke and every racist insult you can imagine. Apparently, the simple presence of a black lead character is enough to send these people into a complete spiral. Just look at some of these clowns talking about N fatigue. Like, really? N fatigue? Well, we sure know what that N stands for. And it says everything about where their hearts truly are when it comes to criticizing this game. One of them even wrote, I have so much N fatigue. 13% of the population, but they have to be in all our media. Bruh. Gamers can be pretty annoying. Anyways, they have called the character ugly, claimed no one wants to play as a black woman, and some have even referred to Hazel, the main protagonist, as a Shaniqua, a derogatory term in this context. Some time back, I came across a guy on YouTube who just straight up said, "Hey, why don't they have to? Why did they have to use a black protagonist? Aren't there also white people in the South?" Some are claiming the game is generic, which to me is pretty wild because the Gothic South is a super unique setting. And personally, for me, outside of Alone in the Dark remake and the Disney animated film Princess and the Frog, I can't think of any other media that has explored this vibe. And so, to me, it is definitely far from being a generic or unoriginal game. And if you guys want to leave down other examples of games or films with this vibe, I'd appreciate that in the comments. And then you have grifters like Grums. And Grums is a prominent anti-woke commentator who is very known for spreading disinformation. He claimed Hazel was a race-swapped character who was changed from a white woman to a black woman, supposedly based on information from quote-unquote former developers from Compulsion Games. But of course, knowing it's Grums, there's zero evidence to back this up. And it's most likely another baseless lie fueling the anti-woke outrage. And this isn't surprising considering Grum's own history. He's very notorious for running with misleading narratives without doing any fact checking and has plenty of failed promises like his upcoming crowd-funded game, Ember, which left backers disappointed and calling him a scammer. Manufactured outrage like this is nothing new. And regarding Grum's game that's still languishing after around 8 years or so, I'm going to link down some YouTube videos that goes deeper into the production hell of this game. That is even if it's gonna come out. Hello, Future Jesse here. I'd just like to shout out to McDrizzle Gaming, who has really broken down the scams that Grums has done, and I will be linking his YouTube channel and the various videos under in the description. So people like Grumps always push fake insider knowledge, and this comes as their latest excuse to attacking diversity in gaming. So recently I have noticed this trend that whenever a black character is revealed in a video game, especially nowadays in the year of our Lord Jesus Christ 2025 and 2024 and 3, the reaction is instantly labeled as woke, even when no one knows shit about the game and the game has just been announced. But as long as you have a black character, it's woke. So let's take, for example, Assassin's Creed Shadows. And the announcement of this game had all these clowns losing their minds because the game included Yasuke, a black samurai. And majority of them ignored the fact that the game also includes a Japanese woman as another protagonist, and instead cried about how it's unrealistic for a black man to be a samurai in Japan. And some even said that they always wanted to play as an Asian Japanese man, but not a woman. So there's that too. And to show how diabolical some of these clowns were, some even pretended to be Japanese historians in order to discredit Yasuke's existence. The funny thing is, years ago, we had a Japanese-made game, Neo, with a white protagonist as a samurai. And these same people were dead silent, no outrage, no complaints about a white guy in a Japanese setting. But now, because Yasuke is black, they are suddenly all about historical accuracy. Enter a Twitter user named Kenji Yamamoto, claiming to be a Japanese historian. This guy shows up one day and starts posting all sorts of nonsense, attacking Yasuke's portrayal in the game, saying Yasuke wasn't really a samurai, and even questioning whether Yasuke actually existed in Japanese history. His main argument? Yasuke didn't commit seppuku, which I think according to Japanese samurai culture is ritual suicide after his lord's death. So he wasn't a quote-unquote real samurai. Now, while there can be debates about whether Yasuke was a real samurai or not, let us not forget that Assassin's Creed is a franchise that is inspired by history and is not a documentary. The series is full of historical inaccuracies, like fighting mystical creatures in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I also believe you fight them in Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And Assassin's Creed franchise also has a group of people called the Isu, who are like gods who created human beings and all that. And none of that is actual history. But no one ever complained about that type of historical accuracy until Yasuke showed up in Shadows, is when everybody was crying about more historical accuracy in Assassin's Creed. This is where the hypocrisy of the anti-woke crowd comes into play. So back to Kenji Yamamoto. Here's the kicker. After a little digging, it turns out Kenji wasn't a historian at all. Not even close. He was just some white guy from America pretending to be an expert. His whole identity was fake. People found out he had no credentials, no ties to academic institutions, and no real authority on the subject. He was just stirring up drama and spreading false information to discredit Yasuke's place in history. A total grift. This whole situation, especially to me, shows just how far people are willing to go to discredit black figures and characters in media when they don't fit into their narrow view of history. And it's also a prime example of how misinformation, spreads online, especially when someone pretends to be an authority figure. And a lot of people did take Yamamoto's lies seriously until the truth came out. And part of this whole Yasuke controversy, many other anti-woke grifters made their audiences flock to Japanese Ubisoft YouTube channels to downvote the trailers and claim that most Japanese audiences hated the game, and yet they sent their own audiences, because you can open a YouTube page and check the video from whichever country you're from, and then just downvote the video. And so these guys were trying to claim that it's actually Japanese who were downvoting, but it was just them. So this shows you just the great lengths that these guys are willing to go, and it's really, really embarrassing. Another example that I would like to share with you guys is GTA 6. When GTA 6 was first teased, a lot of the outrage on Twitter focused on how there were too many black people in the game. This is legit one of the main noise a lot of people on Twitter are making. And mind you, this game is set on Florida, where, shocker, black people live. When called out, some of these grifters backpedaled, saying how, they're gonna enjoy the game because they can at least shoot brown people. Now that one is just racist, plain old racism. So let me show you this article from The Gamer that broke this down very well around the time the trailer came out. And finally, of our examples, we have a game called Tales of Kenzer Zau. And by the way, this game was created by the guy who voice acted Bayek from Assassin's Creed Origins. What was his name again? Abu Bakr Salem. Yes, that's him. And it was a game rooted in African stories. It was instantly labeled woke trash because it showcased black African culture. And when you confront these guys about it, like you ask them, why is this game woke? Why are you saying the things you're saying? They quickly jump to, Sweet Baby Inc. was part of this game, as if that's the ultimate gotcha. It's like it's some universal metric of a game being bad, which, spoiler, it's not. There are plenty of successful games that Sweet Baby Inc. has been involved in. For example, God of War Ragnarök, Spider-Man 2, Baldur's Gate 3, and the list goes on. Many of the time, these grifters don't even know what they're criticizing half of the time, and they just hate anything that celebrates diversity. If you go and ask these people who are saying Tales of Kenzer is woke trash, and you ask them what's really woke about this game, many of them won't be able to tell you because they haven't even played the game. You can have genuine criticism like, the gameplay was a certain way, or, I didn't like the voice acting, or the game felt low budget. But these guys legit tell you it's woke, but they can't tell you why it's woke. So the only excuse they can give you is Sweet Baby Inc., and that's it. From these examples, it shows how there is a very obvious racial factor in the quote-unquote criticism of black people in video games. So now that the anti-woke content creators have cast their stone, already labeling South of Midnight as a bad game without knowing much about it, here lies a question. If South of Midnight turns out to be good, will they still stick to their claims? Or will they backtrack like they did with Baldur's Gate 3? This behavior, as I learned recently, has a name called Schrodinger's woke. This is when something is branded as woke and bad until it becomes successful, at which point it magically stops being woke. We have seen this play out with a couple of properties, media, such as in both films and games, such as Baldur's Gate 3, which I had mentioned before, God of War Ragnarok, the Barbie movie. We all remember how they were all saying this movie is woke, it's going to bomb, Critical Drinker making all sorts of filth videos. And when the movie came out, it was a huge success, and now all these guys are backtracking and saying, oh, Barbie movie was never woke. Crazy. The 2024 Wicked film with Ariana Grande, this was another one that they said was woke and was gonna fail, and now they're gonna eat their own words as the movie's been very successful, and they're gonna say it's not woke. And finally, Warhammer Space Marine 2. So let's go deeper into this game. So, for example, when Space Marine 2 was announced and the trailers were released, people like Edimian called the game woke for including women, black characters, and the game having an LGBTQ writer. But when the game dropped and apparently was actually good, they quickly changed their tune, calling it anti-woke instead. They did this, by the way, with, I think it was the Mario movie. They also said the Mario movie was going to be very woke. And then when the movie came out and was successful, they then turned around and said the movie is not woke, but it's actually anti-woke. And it's honestly laughable how shameless these grifters are. What's even worse is that they never admit that they are wrong, and instead they quietly delete old tweets or act like their criticism never happened. It's the same cycle every time. Trash something for diversity and then pretend they never did the moment it's successful. The Birdman nailed it in his video series called Exposing Grifters. These people thrive on outrage, using their platforms to farm clicks with hate and lies. They scream about how diversity is ruining culture, but it's all projection. Many of them hide behind fake morality, calling others sinners. By the way, anti-woke grifter content creators always like to do this. They call other people sinners and bad people, while they themselves are caught engaging in disgusting behavior. Some of these guys are abusers. Some of these guys are wife beaters. And some of these guys, probably even many of them, are closeted gay people, attacking other gay people for being gay. It's hypocrisy of the highest order. Many of the times, these anti-woke grifters don't even care about video games. They only care about pushing their agenda of hatred and fear because it brings money. And negative news is a moneymaker. People always gravitate to the bad news before they care for the good news. And what's worse is how they target young, impressionable audiences with their lies, radicalizing them in the process. As gamers, we need to push back against this. Representation in games isn't woke. It's simply a reflection of the world we live in. And people who always tell you, I don't care about how a character looks, but it would be the same people crying and complaining. Why don't you have white characters? Why did you replace a white character with a black one or a POC one? Yet this is the same person who tells you they don't care about representation and diversity. The very fact that you're crying about not having white characters is representation in itself. Anyway, Let's not sugarcoat that anti-woke content creators don't even focus on what they love about games. It's always hate and outrage. I used to follow some of them, but I eventually realized how toxic their content was. They rely on half-truths and outright lies to manipulate their audience, and it's really exhausting. Most of them don't even understand what they're talking about, but love to present themselves as some sort of authority. The truth? Well, they're just out here rotting people's brains for clout and a quick buck. But let's be real. These people aren't even happy. Their lives are miserable, and they seem determined to spread that same misery to others. Honestly, if you consume their content, you're only making yourself sadder and a more bitter person. The moment I let go of that content, I think I have been for the better. The anti-woke agenda is rooted in fear and fear of change and resistance to inclusive storytelling. They conflate diversity with propaganda and focus on divisive rhetoric, all in an effort to block progress. But this selective outrage and misinformation only serves to limit the potential of storytelling that reflects the true diversity of human experiences. The tactic of anti-woke creators goes beyond simple criticism. As I said before, they twist half-truths into compelling lies, making their message even more insidious. By preying on insecurities and biases, they create echo chambers of hate, stripping their audiences of the ability to engage with the media objectively. And over time, consuming this content can lead to radicalization and pushing people towards extremely and increasingly extreme and hostile views. That's why I urge everyone to think critically about the content that they consume. Engaging in echo chambers that demonizes majorities and others around you, it only just feeds into a cycle of hate. Misinformation is dangerous because it mixes lies with just enough truth to seem believable. The backlash of South of Midnight reveals a larger cultural struggle. The outrage over its black protagonist highlights how fragile progress in representation still is. Games like South of Midnight, which celebrate diverse voices, are kind of vital in challenging these toxic narratives. But they will always face relentless opposition from those who fear change. South of Midnight drops April 8th, and I am beyond hyped for this game. I can't wait to see what the devs showcase when the game comes out and all the hard work they've put into this game. And clearly, previously from the documentary, they put so much love, and you could just feel it just from watching the video. I hope it turns out incredible and finally shuts these grifters up and make them eat their words, like many other games have done. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. I have a few videos coming soon on various topics, which is outside of culture war discussions. I just wanted to speak about this to get it off my chest because it's been an issue I've been seeing a lot in the gaming world, in the gaming community, a lot very recently. And sometimes I wonder some games, if they release today, how would they be received? Probably not good at all. Such as Assassin's Creed Origins definitely wouldn't have been received well. We are currently at around 193 subscribers, and I'd like to thank my 193 subscribers for hanging around even after all the videos I just post is just really goofy, silly stuff. And we are actually aiming for a goal of 500 subscribers. So if you're watching, I'd appreciate your subs. I would also like to hear your thoughts on my video. This is my first proper video, I can say, where, my first video. So I can leave your feedback. Thank you very much. See you in the next video. Goodbye.